The IFA Show. The stories behind the financial advice headlines with the team from IFA.
Hello and welcome to the IFA Show. I'm your host, Keith Ford. Joining me today, I've got Tom Moloney, who is the partner and financial advisor at Falcon Financial Advisers. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Great to be here, Keith.
Great to have you along. It's you've got an interesting story, which is what we kind of want to have a chat about. Really about how you moved to having your own financial advice firm. So before we kind of, get into any questions I've got for you around that, you give me a bit of a rundown on how you kind of got into advice and then moved into, having your own firm.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely, Keith. For me, I'm someone who really wanted to do advice from the get-go. I studied a financial planning degree, so it was always a big career goal of mine. I think personal finance, helping people, using skills in that way to add value to their lives and having an eye for numbers and building relationships. For me, it was all a very natural fit, and I love the craft of developing a financial plan, working with other stakeholders. So rather than falling into advice, which I think is pretty common, it was very intentional for me from the get-go. So once I finished my degree, I got a role in a boutique practice and built up my skills as a paraplanner, then became an associate, then into a senior advisor, got my CFP, and that's been the pathway for me.
Yeah, which you mentioned the idea of, people falling into advice and things like that. Absolutely is a common kind of story. Gets made a little bit hard with the very stringent, relevant degrees that have to be taken. We can maybe get to that later.
Of course.
I think that's something we'll talk about. Did you find that it was a very deliberate then path, not just into advice, but then into having your own firm? Or was that a bit of that's where you did like the falling into something? Or was that also pretty, no, I want to do my own firm?
Yeah, looking back, great question. For me, it was always a bit of an endpoint in terms of where I wanted to take my career in advice, in terms of running my own business, going through the challenges of that, the rewards, the development curve. But ultimately, I was working in a corporate financial planning practice, which did get sold about 2 years ago. And I did have some very strong referral relationships at that time. One was a good size accounting group who really liked what I was doing, and we had a great relationship, and they appreciated what I was doing for their clients. And at the time, it just happened to be the right idea for us to say, hey, let's set up this entity. So what happened there, this was about 2 years ago, and I spoke with my new employer and was very clear about my intentions as well to say, hey, this is what I want to do, this is the opportunity, and really made a point of leaving with integrity in the right way as well. Right. Because when you do go out on your own, I think it's really important that you set off on the right foot as well. But so far it's been a really interesting journey and very rewarding as well, with its challenges along the way, but so far so good.
Yeah. All right, so you've given a little bit of a idea there. Essentially, you kind of launched the firm as part of that network that the accounting firm had. That's the idea, right?
That's right, yeah.
So how does that work in terms of, setting it up? Probably a little bit easier than doing it completely on your own, I have to think, because you've got the backing of this already established business in some ways. So what does that look like moving from, being an employed advisor to then setting it up within this framework?
Well, most definitely. I think the support which I was provided to be able to go forth and set up an entity, it really made all the difference in terms of focusing on helping clients and providing a good running board. And I was also fortunate in the sense that I did stay with my licensee during that transition and maintain that relationship. That gave some real continuity in that process as well. So there were a lot of things from startup that I didn't have to worry about. So when, as opposed to going about it alone, you do have to think about, okay, where am I going to rent? What IT do I need to think about? What sort of resourcing and staffing do I need to think about? what do I do about a licensee or a dealer group? All of these things I didn't necessarily have to worry about to begin with. But I think you're right. There's certain trade-offs that you need to think about when you are starting this journey. And I look back and think, yeah, I'm really happy with the way things have turned out for us so far, for sure.
Mm. So what does that relationship look like with, do you mostly still get to call your own shot? You get to run things the way that you want to run it and everything like that?
Absolutely. And I think it's worth talking about the particular model in which we operate. So I am aligned with an accounting group. They are called Eagle Financial. So the name Falcon...
I can see where where that's come up. It's not a mistake. Yeah.
No, it's not a mistake. It was very complimentary, and the name stuck really well, and it has become a good brand, at least within our group. And in terms of their size, they've got about 50 to 60 staff members across 5 or 6 offices across from here in Sydney, 2 offices, 2 up in Newcastle, Maitland, 1 up in the Gold Coast, 1 in Brisbane and Hervey Bay. So there's quite a broad network there, and we wanted to do financial planning within that group for some time, and being able to set up Falcon to provide a great level of service and support to their clients, many of whom do have financial planning needs. They've been very complimentary of the services so far, and we're really off to a strong start in that process.
It is obviously just from a referral relationship, accountants, financial advisors, there's a lot of synergy there. You're going to have a lot of clients that need the services of the other, that's going to happen a lot. Having it kind of as part of that same network, have you found that it changes the way you work with clients in terms of figuring out what their needs are and whether they need that referral? Has anything changed in how you refer now that you're like a formal part of that network? Or is it pretty much we do the same thing? If they need an accountant, we say, look, we've got them. We're not trying to force accounting services on them or anything.
Yeah, absolutely not. There's no forced, you must go see this person. There's no attempt to cross-sell. It really comes naturally of, do you know a financial planner or do you know an accountant? And we do have a mortgage broking service too, but we absolutely work with accountants, brokers outside of our group as well. So it really comes down to the client's relationship, and we're very respectful of that. But I think more broadly, I really want to talk about what we're about as a business in terms of Falcon Financial. And, the purpose that we're really striving for is providing accessible, affordable advice to Australians from all walks of life. So on the accounting side, they've got a very diverse client base. We've got accumulators, mums and dads, retirees, pre-retirees. We've got clients needing aged care requirements. So we wanted to build an offering that had a home for that broader client base. And I think in time, given our plans, we're looking to bring a few planners in the coming years, given the demand for our services. I'm really excited about the opportunity for good people who see this opportunity and want to maybe specialise into more of a niche area to go into what they want to do. But right now, we're just scratching the surface in terms of what the potential is.
So when you look at it from, you said, one of the goals is the accessible, affordable advice. So how do you try to provide that? What do you look at in order to make it both accessible and affordable? Like, what are the methods you kind of think are most effective?
Yeah, well, I think that's the challenge that every firm faces at the moment. We're thinking about solutions that we can provide accessible advice to a large cohort of Australians. And I guess the way we want to tackle that issue is any client who might initially have a need, we definitely want to have a conversation and really qualify what it is they're looking for, what they're after, and where they need the assistance and guidance. And we're very upfront in terms of how we price for our services. So on our webpage, for the 4 main client types who we typically work with, we provide a pretty comprehensive range of what pricing might look like, both for an upfront financial plan and also any more comprehensive work where they may benefit from an ongoing relationship. So once we really talk about what we do and what our service model is, there may be some potential clients who say, well, I'm not in the market for that level of service right now, but it might just be an initial conversation. But I think some firms are really doing a great job of providing a level of education, knowledge or digital platforms to give that free education and build a bit of a marketing audience where it might be a not yet, but into the future it could absolutely be the case. So for us, that's definitely a bit of a plan in terms of what we want to roll out in our business to really delight our target audience, our existing clients, which is very important to us, but also being accessible to the broader public to say, here are some concepts which may be relevant to you and what are some of the ideas that we can help tackle that. So it's really jumping into that side of things too, which I think is going to be very interesting to see.
There are some barriers to affordable, accessible advice.
Yes.
There's some very obvious ones. There's, just the cost of running a financial advice firm, the infrastructure costs, the digital tools, all of that. And then there's regulatory costs, there's potentially, blowout of CSLR costs, all of that. Is it really those areas that you find are the biggest hurdle in terms of being able to reduce or, not increase the cost of advice? Or is there what else plays into it? Do you find that it's really those areas are the ones that are kind of jumping in?
I think it's definitely a part of it, but I also think it's the time that it takes to run all the investigations, the due diligence, and really provide something very personalised to a client situation. It does take time and it takes expertise. And it's not just me in my business. I've got a great team behind me who give me amazing support. So it's about having the ability to hire that staff and give them great development pathways so that they can grow in the business as well. So there's a number of different inputs that we do need to consider. You've certainly touched upon some of them, but there's also a number of other things in the back end where quality control is really important, but delivering that great service too.
Yeah, which, obviously a lot of talk about efficiency. That's one of the areas, all that time that it takes to do all of these different processes and all of that. Some of it, it's just, there's due diligence involved. You have to do the due diligence. You can't just skip over it or anything like that. But there's a lot of tools that can be utilized to streamline as many areas as possible. Do you really look at those as being, I guess the best way of going about it is trying to utilize digital kind of tools to do those processes? Or is it just, you've got a team, you lean on them, but just try and help them be as efficient as possible as well?
I think it's the sum of all the above. I think digital's definitely a key part of what we need to do. We use a client portal in our business, which is designed to capture data more efficiently. Yeah. But then how does that transfer within different other functions of the business so that, to your point, Keith, everyone is working efficiently across the various parts of that advice process end to end.
Every part talking to all the other parts, right?
Absolutely. No silos in Falcon.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back with a bit more from Tom in just a moment. All right, we are back now with more from Tom from Falcon Financial. You spoke a little bit earlier on around some of, you find the trade-offs to get the best answer for what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve with your firm, all of that kind of stuff. So when you're looking, obviously the opportunity really presented itself to you in terms of the business being sold, having this connection, them offering it up, being like, we'd love to work together, and you had that opportunity. Had you kind of opted to go a different direction in the way that you set up your firm, where do you think the positives and negatives kind of would have been different? And do you think this was probably the best option for you and how you could have set things up?
Yeah, definitely at the time. Looking back, we're now 20 months into business, and I certainly wouldn't have done anything different since starting Falcon. I've certainly learned a number of lessons along the way in terms of, okay, what can we do better as a business going forward? Yeah. But I've really appreciated those lessons to make me a better business owner, transitioning from a planner who's in front of the clients, being that technician and going to the business owner role, which, we can talk about that as well. But I think to go to your question about the benefits and the drawbacks, so certainly benefits, part of being within a group or a network of other affiliated businesses, because that's how we're structured, where each principal in accounting or financial planning or mortgage broking, there's one principal within their business usually. They're the director within that business, and it's usually shared ownership based on who are those responsible for the support of that person along the way. So what are some of the benefits of that? We do get some economies of scale and shared costs. I only rent the desk that I need because we all share in the office buildings that we work from. We're all part of a managed service provider in terms of providing IT and cyber solutions, very critical. Then we've got an HR function within our group as well. So HR, recruitment, all of those things where I need to lean on that team for advice as far as hiring and staff development and remuneration and all that goes. That's sorted. Yes, there's a cost for it, but there is a benefit when you are part of a shared collective as well. I mean, some of the drawbacks as opposed to, when you think about what are the implications of going it completely on your own without that type of support behind you? I think the biggest drawback is, from day one, you have to make a decision about all these things. You need to have a lot of funding behind you. Licensing doesn't come cheap, whether you are an auth rep or if you go self-licensing. So that in itself takes a significant amount of time to go through the process of going through approvals, finding the right commercial space, sourcing an IT provider, working out, okay, do I need to hire someone now? When do I bring in a resource? Understanding the timeline of all that. And off the back of that, you've got to find some clients to bring income through the door as well. So I think definite advantages to what we've done in terms of that. But look, where we wouldn't provide perhaps the best benefit is you're not getting 100% ownership of what you're running. I mean, we work in a business where we do provide shared support across our group. It's not exclusive, but we do work with each other and help bring each other up. So if you are wanting to own 100% of what you're trying to build, then we're not the right fit. And for me, I never wanted to go into something all by myself. I wanted to work with a group of partners who had a shared mindset, shared set of values, and all swimming in the same direction, which has absolutely been the case for us.
Yeah. And so, there's obviously those scale benefits, and that they've already got a bunch of these kind of systems in place. Obviously makes life a lot easier when you're starting it up. You can kind of hit the ground running a lot more, not having to, as you say, make decisions around commercial space and who you're going to hire as an IT guy, or how you manage an HR function, or any of that. Then it goes from that idea that you mentioned around you're not just a financial advisor anymore, you're also running a business. How have you found that kind of mindset shift? And I guess what have you learnt about both being an advisor and being a business owner from making that switch?
Yeah, you definitely feel the weight of it. So going from an employee advisor at the time, and as I stepped into the owner role, I developed a total level of appreciation and admiration for all of the other functions that operate within financial planning, all of those different pieces to actually make the provision and delivery of compliant advice worthwhile and effective.
Man, I didn't know how easy I had it.
I definitely, so conceptually I understood that I knew that I needed to think about all these things, but once you're in it, you really feel the weight of that, and you've still got to be the responsible advisor principal. And I think in a way I've been very fortunate in terms of the team that I've been able to build in the 20 months that we've been around. So it's now not just myself as the advisor, the admin person, the associate, the support, wearing 10 different hats. I've got a great team behind me. I've got 2 client service officers, an associate, Lily, who started her professional year, and I've also got an undergrad as well. But I think over time, we'll all continue to develop our skills in this area. And, in terms of the way that the first period in business has been for us, we've had some really good success, some good growth, but I know that ahead of us we're going to have different challenges in terms of, well, how do we make this a business where other financial planners will want to join us and see the benefit and value of potentially having this pathway that's accessible to ownership, and they can still be a great advisor and have all the support functions behind them so they can focus on being with their client as much as possible, but still own and control a big portion of that relationship that they have with their clients as well.
Have you put much thought? I mean, I'm assuming there'd be some, but it is still relatively early on, 20 months, as you say. It's not like it's, a business that's been established for like 5 years or anything like that. But
yeah,
the idea of, at some point it might be that you have to stop giving advice yourself, or you have to bring someone else in to kind of take over the running of the business kind of role, and you can keep doing the thing that you kind of wanted to do in the first place, which is provide advice.
Of course.
As businesses get bigger, there's a point at which that one of those decisions usually has to be made. Is that something that you kind of been thinking about already? And is there of like trying to figure out what that point is and when you would make that choice of I've got to go one way or the other?
Oh, definitely. And I'm fully a big believer of you can be a great advisor and you can be a great business owner, but trying to do both at once and take on all of those responsibilities, you'll run into a wall. So you've got to plan for the functions that are going to ensure that continuity and maintenance of the business. And I definitely see a point in time where, especially if we are bringing in some more talented advice professionals over the next 12 to 24 months, which we will absolutely have capacity to do, I definitely see the benefit of having a practice manager type role within the business to really help coordinate the workflow and manage things like the marketing functions, the operations, and liaising with our cybersecurity insurer when the renewal's up each year, and also reporting into our referral partners in terms of how the business is tracking from a revenue, from a cost perspective. There is most definitely that function that needs to be fulfilled, and I'm managing it at the moment, but as we grow, we're not going to be able to take the business any further if everything's stuck on my shoulders.
Someone that can take a few more of those hats off you.
Exactly. So we're probably going to be looking at something like that from a resourcing perspective as we go into the new year as well. But yeah, we'll see how it goes and where it all lands. But I think we're on this exciting growth path at the moment, and challenges ahead and lots of balls to juggle. But yeah, so far so good.
On a little bit of a different topic, but it's something we wanted to talk about, and it's an area that you've touched on a few times. You've got associate advisor in the business, and wanting to bring people through and things along those lines. Something you've told me previously is that you're very, passionate around developing talent, providing those the career pathways for financial advisors that are kind of entering the profession and things along those lines. So when you're looking at it, I guess from the business model perspective first, and we can kind of go broader after that, but looking at it from that business model perspective, how do you approach that general idea and then, some of the specifics of having someone there on their PY and doing that process? Because obviously it's not, it requires proper supervision. We've seen someone get banned for not supervising a PY properly before, where the advice that they've given, you've signed off on, it can get you, in trouble. You've got to do a good job of it. And
Absolutely.
you're training someone who's going to be doing it by themselves in the future. So you want to make sure that they're set up to do that. So very long way of asking the question, but your philosophy from a business perspective on how to go about these kind of this kind of area.
Yeah, and I think we're in a unique position right now where our business is in a good phase of growth. So it's not as if we've got a very large back book of clients that we need to service and manage. We are going through this process of onboarding new clients that get referred into the business, and pretty much at every stage, I want Lily to really be involved in those discussions.
Yeah.
And we tend to tackle that together, where she'll play a role in terms of helping to handhold the clients through things like implementation, and then also liaising with the paraplanner about putting the advice documents together. And then over time, giving her more of an opportunity to be talking with the clients. So for me, it's really about shadowing everything that I'm doing at the moment, getting an idea of how to run a client meeting, how to handle objections and how to really get to the heart of what a client's needs are, even if their spoken needs might be very different from that. Right. Developing those skills over time, not to mention the technical side too. And look, I'm very big about empowering my team to go to as many training sessions as possible, whatever CPD events are on, because I mean, learning is going to develop those skills, and having a mixture of practical applications plus events that various financial providers will offer. And some of those programs are fantastic, like the TAL PY Academy. All of these things are very useful for our business and to helping make that happen. And then for me, it's just about having that dual role to really supervise that, but also stay on top of the overall client management, but within a sustainable manner as well, and not taking on more work than what we initially need right now.
I'm gonna have to send Tal a bill for the plug there. No, I'm kidding.
I was trying to be product agnostic.
They have a lot of those, those services like the Risk Academy and things like that as well. When you you mentioned there the shadowing, the getting an idea of how that kind of works, and the one that you said that was quite interesting, and it's something that comes up a lot. I've spoken to a lot of advisors around this area, is the idea that the spoken needs, what the actual needs are, or what they say they want, and whether that is their actual goal or it's just that's how they are understanding how to verbalize it, and what they are actually wanting is something different that will give them that. That's the end point, but what they actually need is something kind of related. Figuring that out can't be easy, because someone tells you this is what I want, this is what I need, these are my goals. Obviously, you're like, yeah, well, you would know. You're you understand that better than me. But not all the time. They don't always understand better than someone else who's hearing what they're saying and being like, I don't actually think that is your goal. I think your goal is this. Does that make sense to you? Or something along those lines. How do you learn that skill? Because I have to assume some of it's just kind of innate, of just relating to people, something about personality, things along those lines. And then how do you pass that on and try and, show someone else, like, when the reason that I clicked on this being maybe not an actual goal, or maybe not the heart of the goal that they're looking for, this particular thing is what did it for me. That's something you should look out for. Like, how do you go about that process?
Well, it's diagnosis before prescription.
Right.
That's the key part of it. When you're meeting a client for the first time who might have a good idea of what it is that they're looking to get, it's always about taking a step back and really understanding where they're at first, and asking as many open-ended questions as possible. I think it's
like they're saying, look, I need to fix my cough, and you're saying, no, you need to fix what's causing the cough. Kind of thing.
Course.
Right? Yeah.
That's definitely part of it. And it's really just also having the courage just to challenge in a really respectful way, but not in a way of trying to push back against their idea and tackle that head on. It's more about saying, hey, I'm sitting here next to you. I understand that there's something that you're trying to solve. So let's sit here together side by side and help figure that out. So trying to teach that to team members, particularly when they're learning for the first time, I think the key is just volume, repetition, and developing their own level of pattern recognition, so that they start to pick up on these little cues. And I mean, communication, what do they say? 90% is unspoken.
Right.
So really just having the grounded and awareness to understand what the cues might be, to ensure that you are staying hyper present in that conversation, and that you're taking them on a journey as well.
Right.
And everyone's at a different level along the process too.
Right. And probably to a similar degree, trying to figure out if, all right, normally I would think this, they're really pushing back on it. Maybe I'm wrong, or something like that. All right, maybe actually I'm wrong. All right, let's restart. We'll re-go through it. All right, have I got this wrong, or something along those lines? Because obviously, no one hits 1,000. There's going to be some areas where you think that's what it is, and then you're like, oh, actually no, they were straight up telling me what they wanted. They were right. Does that happen much? Or
look, it's about not having any kind of, trying to keep an open mind as possible, right?
Yeah.
And really just following a process rather than saying, hey, you must do this before you even go through the process. So, and this is what going through the professional development of being an advisor means. It means you've got to understand the evidence, and you've got to look at the data points behind things which can help confirm or support or dismiss an idea which, really aligns to what a client may or may not need. So I think really about following a process and saying, okay, well, our default position in terms of working with you, and this is our best interest obligations, is, are your current arrangements working for you right now? And if the answer is yes, then keep going. That's the threshold that needs to be overcome first and foremost. So if you start from that position and you're doing it from a point of, okay, well, what are we using our skills to go and research and investigate and maybe talk to other professionals where we don't have that level of knowledge, and how do we come to the best outcome for a client? I think it's about, what do I say, trusting the process.
Trust the process. It's Joel Embiid there. Not sure that worked out. Most of the time, trusting the process works.
Sure.
Just not 7'3" dudes with bad knees. Just anyway, I divert to NBA topics way too frequently.
I'm not enough of a basketball fan to know, so I'll take your word.
You're too tall not to be, Tom. We're going to take another quick break. We'll be back with more around professional development with Tom. I'll try and limit the NBA. We'll be back in a moment. All right, we are back again with more from Tom Moloney from Falcon Financial Advisers. We were talking around helping young advisors through the PY in particular, in this instance. Where do you think what area do you think is the most in need of help for these young advisors? What do they need the most help with? And I mean, I'm kind of going to answer my own question here based on what you'd said earlier. Talking a lot about the understanding how people work and all of that kind of stuff. Sounds like the numbers is not really the thing you're working on. So that's going to be my guess, is something around that area, but I'll let you take it away. What you think kind of the most important thing to focus on with young advisors really is.
Yeah, look, don't get me wrong. Numbers are critical. You've got to have a basic mathematical understanding to be able to succeed.
I think sometimes when we do these conversations, we kind of just assume that everyone's good with the numbers, which may not be the case. It might not be. We kind of assume, I guess, because you've got no degree that allows you to provide financial advice, you probably have some coverage of the numbers.
Of course. Assume knowledge, we'll say. But yeah, I think, yes, developing those relationship skills are very important. It's something that generally takes a lot of time and experience. And but I also think it depends on your advice market as well too, to an extent. I mean, look, everyone wants to, who is in the market for advice, they want advice to be provided in a professional way that is meeting their best interest and provided by someone who they feel that they can trust.
Yeah.
So those are these hygiene factors in advice that need to be established. So developing and training younger associates in those skills, it's about just giving them as much time to meet and connect with people as possible. And time in client meetings, but also time meeting other industry professionals, being at events and learning how just to talk and to understand, the way that the ecosystem works in advice, but also understanding it in a way that, okay, well, I understand it now. Now the challenge is to translate that so that a potential client can help understand it as well, but also in a way that I'm really making that connection too.
Yeah. So do you find that with the working with different professionals, being part of a network with some accountants and mortgage brokers and things like that, is that helpful, do you think, because they've got the ability to, talk to them as part of the same business even?
Absolutely. And we have all team events where we come together and present and talk about the various things that we do and what we can do to help. We're a very tight-knit and inclusive group, which is fantastic. And in terms of that level of support, almost every partner in the group has been referring their clients into Falcons, so that's a real nod from them in terms of their confidence in us. But it takes time to build that level of trust too. So if I'm communicating that to younger advisors, when you're starting out, I think. So just so I can clarify, Keith, are you asking from the point of view, what do we do to get more people into advice, or what should young people be thinking about becoming advisors?
Probably to begin with, I mean, we'll definitely want to know what you think we can do to get more advisors in, but from the perspective of young advisor or someone who's an aspiring advisor looking to get in there already, what they, how it would be best set up for them.
Definitely. I think, and I'm very fortunate because when I was coming up through the years, I had some fantastic mentors and people who taught me really well, and not only how to do advice technically in an excellent way, but also ethically in a right way as well. So it was the way that they taught me. That's something that I try and uphold myself to. And I just think the biggest thing for me, for a younger advisor to really appreciate and understand is and it's hard because when you're first starting out, you've got this energy and you want to go as fast as you can to excel and improve your skills. But having a bit of patience and understanding that the skills and those softer skills come with a bit of time and experience, and also learning some lessons too, and making a few mistakes along the way as well, which is totally okay if it's coming from a good place of, I genuinely just want to develop and get better, and maybe I didn't have that contextual understanding behind certain things. So, that's the pattern recognition that comes into it as well. So it's this, for me, it's just all encompassing, looking at the development across getting your degree, doing that postgraduate work, spending as much time on the development of plans as possible and understanding the end-to-end process, but then also getting many opportunities to talk with clients and try and connect with them on different levels as possible.
From looking at it from the other side of trying to get more young Australians to join the advice profession, obviously, there's been some barriers, there's been some issues around that. There's the restrictive nature of what counts as a relevant degree being very, very prescriptive. It has to hit all of these things. Obviously, there is a proposal to expand that. That was, before the election. Hasn't been reintroduced or anything like that. We've not seen an updated draft ledge or anything like that. Hopefully sometime soon. That would be great. That would open it up to any bachelor's degree, obviously still needing to hit the specific, requirements of subjects, but really aimed at opening it up to people who've done commerce or accounting or something along those lines, making it a bit easier for them to still qualify and then become financial advisors and go through the rest of the process. That's one way that's being looked at to open it up. Do you think that's a positive way of going about it? What ways would you be looking at to try and open it up to more advisors?
Look, I think there still needs to be specialisation because there are specialist advice skills that need to be picked up along the way. And I think what Kaplan provide in terms of that grad dip, I think that's a fantastic pathway to at least be across the core tenets of what goes into comprehensive advice, like what is superannuation, what is life insurance, estate planning.
Send to build a Kaplan now as well. No.
What's that?
I'll send to build a Kaplan as well now. No.
Yeah.
No. So being able to have that grad dip type thing, working on it like that.
But coupled with on-the-job training and development as well, which is also critical to that development too. So for me, I really enjoyed the process of becoming a CFP. I actually really enjoyed the coursework. And funnily enough, when I first attempted my CFP, I was straight out of university and I didn't have a huge amount of experience or being across various different client work. And I got through the first course, the ethics course, I did very well. And then I did the first sort of technical, I think they call it applied strategies back then. I didn't do well at all. And I just thought, okay, I'm not ready for this yet. And I need more practical training to help develop my understanding. And then a couple of years later, I went back into it and thankfully I did a lot better. But I really enjoyed that process at that time because I had some relevant experience behind me and it actually helped better shape my understanding about applying financial advice strategies to helping clients too.
It'd probably be the kind of thing that if just after finishing uni and just starting as an advisor, if you were able to get your CFP, that'd probably be a mark against the CFP, right? The fact that you needed some experience in the field to then actually be set up to pass and get the CFP, shows it's a qualification worth having, right?
Well, definitely. And a good comparison would be the CA, for instance. I mean, most grads out of their accounting course at uni, they're in grad programs. They're in on-the-job training where they're also completing their CA at the same time, at least emerging accountants who are working in public practice accounting in small practices similar to who I'm working with at the moment as well. So I think there's a good comparison there, although admittedly the cost of developing an accounting professional is very different to developing an advice professional. So that's probably, and I think we're probably in this transition phase anyway in terms of what the lay of the land will look like in advice. So there's probably a bit of uncertainty there, but I'm excited to see what it can look like in the future. And I think, it's an amazing, I'm biased. I love planning. It's what I do. It's what I wanted to do. But I think it's an amazing career path for people who are willing to put in the effort and application, who want to apply technical skills, using numbers, but also building relationships along the way as well.
If there was like one change that you could make to make it easier, or something that you could do to encourage more people to kind of look at financial advice as a career, as a possibility, and or something to kind of drive people into this path, what do you think would be most effective? What would you go for?
Look, I'm not sure. I mean, there's so many.
I guess if you had the answer, right?
Exactly. There's if there was that one thing, you can wave a magic wand.
Yeah.
But I guess the short answer is, I don't know at this stage.
Yeah.
There's a number of different approaches to be made. It has to happen at a whole of sector level, I think. And I think because we don't have that level of institutional wealth management in advice anymore, which was a training ground for a lot of advisors. I mean, I feel like there are green shoots emerging, and I think that there's starting to become more take-up of the professional year. So I am quietly optimistic that it will continue to improve. But I think it's just adjusting and understanding the journey that advice is undergoing to become more professionalised.
Which, I mean, obviously post-Royal Commission, the financial advice landscape is very different to pre-Royal Commission. That's, a real defining point. I think probably the next one is 1 January 2026 when the education requirements are, that's when it needs to be fully done. Either you meet the experience provider pathway, or you have to have all of the education requirements up to date for the new system. That's kind of like another endpoint where anyone who has not met those or meets the experience provider pathway, they're just going to have to exit the kind of financial advice, which could reduce the amount of financial advisors that are kind of within Australia. We don't know how much. Could be 1,000. Could be more. We'll see. But that does feel like another kind of cutoff point where all of those people that don't meet those requirements and everything, they're no longer going to be providing advice. And it just kind of clarifies exactly what financial advice is and who financial advisors are, I suppose, even though there's a good chance that a lot of the advisors that are not going to be taking it back up are probably really good advisors. And it might be a shame to be losing them.
Yeah, and look, from the outset, I'm talking from a point of view about bringing younger entrants into the profession as well, right? I mean, I certainly don't want to see a large loss of very experienced and wise heads who have really helped steward us to where we are today. Yeah. I think there's absolutely a role for them to play in this industry as we continue to develop over time too. Yeah. So, and also the accessibility of advice, it's not going away. We need more. We need to provide more supply to Australians in some way or another, whilst maintaining a level of professionalism and also high quality too, which is what they come to expect. Yeah,
and I guess more people being willing to take on PYs, more firms kind of bringing them on and going through the training process will probably make things easier. Going to have the last question for you. It's one I ask all of the advisors that jump on the podcast. Want to get an idea of what you think the most important topic within advice is at the moment. You can take it in any direction. It can be a challenge. It can be an opportunity. however you like to answer it. Take us away, Tom.
I feel like we've already discussed this considerably. Just the supply of financial advice.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest challenge that we're facing at the moment. For me, I want to increase that supply with bringing in more talented professionals to make it more accessible, but I am but one person. So I'm a drop in the ocean, and thinking about ways that we can do that at a larger level, I think is critical for the survival of professional financial advice as it develops as well.
All right. Well, that's all I've got for you today, Tom. So thank you very much for joining me on the show.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. And thank you to everyone who is listening along. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. That's all for us today. I'll see you again next week. Bye for now.